Welcome everyone to Two Guys in Hockey Talk in 2025. Happy New Year. I believe social cues and norms can say that we can still say Happy New Year 8 days in. I know we were off last week, but welcome back to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. Evan, how are you doing?
Well, it's been a ring-a-ding-dong dandy as I brought in the new year. Yep, I was super busy, buddy. We weren't on the show, so technically, we've only been off 1 week because we replayed our Christmas break. By the way, guys, thanks for joining in during that time. It was a fabulous time. Looking forward to getting back. We have lots and lots. We do not have a guest this week. We always plan right after the break to come out without some guests because we have so much material to cover. And there's lots of talk. I know you guys want to get talking NHL. Some of you want to talk the World Juniors. A whole bunch of other in and around and between things. So how about you, man? How was your break?
It was good. We introduced our second boy into the family. We've just been busy lacking sleep. And so we're enjoying every moment, but it's been fun. But yeah, glad to be back. I'm excited. There's been some really great hockey in the last little bit, including the World Juniors, which we'll get into. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. Let's get into it, Evan, because there's a lot. And Ninja Bear says, dope intro. We appreciate it, Ninja Bear. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Pawel with the 70s porn stash, and Evan still sounds like Steve Koulis.
Hey, I got to say, man, if I'm the USA, we're number one. Jordan, we're number one. Say with me, Jordan. We're number one. So those that don't know, Jordan's a long time. He's been a former guest with us, also a friend. Big supporter of the show, and he likes ribbing me about me liking too much of those American boys and the U.S. teams and loves his WHL Canadian boys. So like to rib him. Why don't we jump into a big conversation around the World Juniors right now?
Sure. Let's talk about how the juniors take place. The Team USA has won back-to-back gold. Very impressive. We can talk a little bit about their coaching and what's left there. Can they go for a three-peat next year when they host it in their home country? And some of the talk, essentially, Evan, as you know, has been around Team Canada. Dave Cameron did Canada bring their best players and bring their A game? Did they have time for practice, or were the boys too tired, the young men, the pressure to play? Your thoughts on overall the tournament, some of the games you caught, and anyone that kind of caught your eye in terms of prospect?
I don't know where to begin. You know what? We got Ninja Bear on right now, so let's hold off on the Canadian talk, and he's chanting USA. So let's do it again. Here we go, Ninja Bear. We're number one. We're number one. Some people, it's funny because they see me with the jersey or me chanting for a country, and they go, oh, so you change countries or you change teams? Dudes, I follow all things hockey across every league around the world. I enjoy good hockey, and the World Juniors are another example of that. So, hey, good on the USA boys. Let's just talk about a couple of those USA boys, and then we'll even get a little bit more into a couple of their players and the teams in the NHL. But if we look back now at what happened here, we can see, number one, so I know people just said, Cole Yzerman, how could you have him ranked number 2 last year? Listen, guys, do you realize he just turned 18 this past August? That's right. He won't even be 19 till this coming August. So in Boston University, he's got 16 games. He's already got 9 goals and 6 assists for 15 points. In the U20, he was a 13th forward, essentially, for 70%, second unit power play. And the guy still got 7 games. He still had 3 goals, 4 assists, and 7 points. I mean, what else are you going to ask for from this guy? This guy is incredible. But let's talk about some other ones. Ray Leonard, what an incredible series. Man, yeah. Washington has got something happening here. And then if we look over, let's just look at a couple other guys that are over there. You got Jacob Stansel with the Blues, 4th round, 106 overall, 7 games, 7 points. How about Dalibor Dvorsky, who I had ranked in there early? He was a 10th overall to the Blues. You had Felix Ungerstrom. He's with the Hurricanes. Incredible. How about the German, Julius Sumpf? 5 games, 7 points. Could he be the next German? And he is a free agent. Right now, he's playing with the Moncton Wildcats. He's got 30 games. He's got his 38 points. I mean, there are players crazy right now that are all over the place for the USA and a lot of other countries. So, Canada, it's time to pull your socks up, hockey socks. It's time to put your jock strap on and do some serious work, because you got a lot to do, because you got a heavy competition out there.
So I will say a few things before we get to Canada. I believe, Cole Hudson out of Boston University, and another Washington prospect. Again,
didn't even bring him.
That's good. Bring up these guys in the playoffs and go, like, imagine what Washington can do this season. And we can get into the Capitals later with Ovi.
Yeah.
But what can they do with both Ryan Leonard and Cole Hudson? That is sick, right? Now let's talk about Zeev Boyum. I think that's how you pronounce it.
And let just because Ray was the MVP of the tourney, but people got to realize Cole was the one that actually led the tournament in points too.
Yeah. And I mean, Trey Augustine was there. Sam Hildebrand from Barrie OHL. He's undrafted yet, but really, let's talk about Zeev Boyum, who really dropped in the draft last year, as you remember. Minnesota picked him up. They are going to be stacked on the back end. He made some very smart elite hockey plays. If you watch, it was impressive. Now, before we get into Canada, Ninja Bear says, how about the USA had a great netminder? I agree. Like they were able to play. Granted, that gold medal game was really fun. I really was rooting for Finland because it was fun. But they just seemed out of gas by the end.
You wanted the Cinderella story.
But Jordan kind of alludes to it. How about Rempinen, the Finnish goalie? He's undrafted and was the best goalie of the tournament. I agree. It's Ryan, not Ray. Yeah, I thought I said Ryan.
Well, maybe I said Ray and not Ryan. Okay, I'm sure in just a moment.
The one take I get is that let's talk about Sweden. They've been participating for so long, and they don't have a lot of medals to show for it. I think it was James Dumpy who talked about it on Twitter/X, how they've been in the tournament for a while and have only had one medal in the last few years. So that's not good for Sweden, given the powerhouse of a hockey market and a hockey country that they are.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Sweden, Czechia, Latvia, and what these teams brought? Germany?
I'm really excited to see essentially you've been looking at 3 nations that were always on top in Canada, Russia, and the USA. Now it's more USA and Canada, almost 1A and 1B, and Russia right behind them. I know Russia hasn't been around in a while. They're still a powerhouse. It's been a while. But again, we're going on what now, the 4th year we're going on the 5th year, I think, outside of 4 years without the Russians, which is kind of a cry. And we need this thing to end over in Russia, the government to get this straightened out and quit the war, man. We're missing out on, you know what? One thing that does bother me, this is just a side note, and I know everyone has a take, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, but when it comes to hockey, the whole idea back even when they were a communist country, they were doing terrible things then, is the idea was hockey was one thing that could bring us together. And unfortunately, we're not able to see that kind of thing happen, even though because of the terrible things happening in the sanctions. But
now, before we get into Canada, I want us to preface, and I want this to be brought up by our sponsor, Rant of the Night, because I got a rant, Evan, okay? I've been building this up.
Okay, let's do it. Rant of the Night.
Let's get it in.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
Calling all hockey fans, stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
Okay, you are Canada. You are one of the best places to play the game of hockey. You have such a good talent pool all across this country. Wherever you go, Evan, whenever people look at Revs Top 15, a lot of these guys play in the CHL somewhere, right? Things will be changing next year with everything, with the merger with the NCAA. But right now, you've got some elite talent here. Why is it that Dave Cameron and Hockey Canada and upper management decided, hey, we're not going to take the best guys. We're just going to take these kind of grinders and third liners. Nothing against the kids. The kids did the best that they could. They were on the ice. I don't condone people who comment negative things on their social media pages like Easton Cowan. He's a good prospect for Toronto Maple Leafs. He struggled a bit, don't get me wrong. But how do you not train? How do you take a day off and tell me these kids are tired and exhausted? What kind of language is that? And then after, when both David Cameron and afterwards Hockey Canada presidents came out and spoke about it, you know what they said? They said, well, we think we would have come back with the same roster because we were good. It's not good enough. It's not on these kids. It's on you to pick the best players ever. Why do you not pick the best players ever? Now, of course, you have someone like Tij Ginla injured, can't play. He would potentially maybe play next year. You know that the elite talent like Connor Bedard and Malcolm Celebrini wouldn't be able to partake. More so Connor Bedard because he's playing, right? I mean, but Macklin Celebrini, he's playing for San Jose. There's no way he's taking time away, with the Kirby Dach situations. But how do you play Gavin McKenna so short? How do you not play guys who play together and have chemistry? How do you what do you do? I think Dave Cameron did a poor job. He's not very good or well known in terms of the OHL and his stats. Look at where his team is standing right now, Evan. And tell me that Team Canada didn't fib this with their roster, especially if you look at the comments when it was first released, who's being invited to camp. You even invited later on camp after pressure from people saying, why don't you have this kid here? Honestly, it's stupid. You have some of the best talent. Now, I agree with Kevin BXS saying there was a lot of these countries are coming up and building talent. Agreed. Yeah, Jordan's right. Caden Lindstrom and Yakimchuk, especially Yakimchuk, who is out of the Ottawa Senators organization. That's where the tournament is. You are across the street in a hotel. You can't practice for an hour. That's my rant of the night. You guys can tell me.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
calling all hockey fans. Stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
Yeah, Zane Perickler. Sorry, I went off a bit. I'm sorry.
No, that's awesome. So I got to tell you, I'm so glad it was you tonight because I do a lot of the rants, and I didn't send Pavel my script tonight, what I wanted to cover, and he had no clue. I was going to cover the rant of the night with Hockey Canada. That was going to be my rant, and pretty much everything you just hit. So if you guys didn't notice, Ninja Bear gave you a 10 out of 10. I can't quite give you a 10, man. I'm going to give you a 9.
That's fine.
But I gotta say,
pretty high for you. That's high praise. I thought it was gonna be more of a 1.5.
So yeah, but you are right, man. It's if you look at leaving players off, I am shocked. Michael Misa, that centerman, did not make the team. Why would you not? He was right at the top, and he is a goal scorer. Literally right now. When we get to my Revs top 15, I'm gonna update you guys where he at. He's one of the ones that I'm saying is entering in. Unfortunately, it's going to be hard to rank him right now because we didn't see him against the best of the juniors right now. And he had a couple off games just during that tournament. But and then Porter Martone, are you serious? What are you doing? Playing him you're playing him in a no position. You set him up to really fail. Gavin McKenna set him up to succeed. And I didn't get it. How about this? You got Bonk, right? And you got Dickinson, and you're playing Bonk ahead of Dickinson, but on the London Knights, Dickinson plays ahead of Bonk. So, don't give me this mix mash, and you play players where they're going to be the most successful. So, I just don't get it. And like you said, Carter should have been there. I know Zane Perrick's totally ticked he wasn't there. They said he'd be a liability. He's undisciplined. But did you see the one thing you did mention? Team Canada, I never saw that many useless penalties that they have got called for ever, other than when they got kicked out of the tournament for fighting. I mean, when the lights went out.
That's on the coaching. You coach, you practice, you play.
But that's on the kids. That's on the kids, though, too. The kids have to be more disciplined, though. So,
the kids have to understand the rules are different from what they're used to in terms of the IHF versus what is here in the CHL or whatever league they're playing in. And that's the problem. Cameron Schmidt had 26 goals in 30 games this season. I mean, the one thing I will add to this mini rant, it's not really much, is the fact that a lot of scouts put so much sometimes credence, whether good or bad, whether justified or unjustified, into the World Juniors, because it's a good way of showcasing, especially those players from abroad. And they look at it. You look at someone like Puljujarvi and Patrick Laine and the chemistry they had, and when they played together, and how, you know, people like what they brought. Now Patrick Laine's doing well in Montreal. Jesse Puljujarvi struggled recently, but they put stock into their play. You got to remember, if these kids are trying to get drafted, they want to perform to the best elite level. And if the coach is not putting them in that successful position, they're not going to have a lot of stock capital.
You just hit, actually, this is kind of a sensitive area for me when it comes to, because like you were mentioning how scouts put a lot of stock. But the truth is we're told they don't put a lot of stock, that you can't do a lot to move up the rankings or down the rankings. But we know that literally is a lie, because you are right. They do put a lot of stock. So, for example, because of Puljujarvi's tournament, like Laine was the right draft pick. What happened to his life has to do with off-ice things, not on ice, and also physical injuries, right? But when you talk about Puljujarvi, I never saw a trajectory for him to be that high. I understood why he went that placement and where they were going, and they anticipate based on size and all. Yeah, exactly. But if you can't score at that size already in a high offensive numbers, you're not going to be an offensive player. You're going to be more like, a good top defensive forward around it. But this is the thing. If you have a bad tournament, that reflects on you. So you think this is not going to reflect on Porter Martone? Like, it won't have a huge impact, but it will have some, because in the time that he did get a few opportunities, now someone like Gavin McKenna, he's fortunate. 3 points in 5 games. Doesn't look great when they were expecting.
Come back next year.
But that's the difference. He has time to still build, and we all know that, get this, Easton Cowan, Gavin had 1 point, but Easton Cowan was the top point getter. No one got more than 3 points on the Canadian team with 5 games. Never. I think this is the lowest scoring team in history, the way it was kind of put together. But I guess I'm excited, though, about the other teams, Pavel. Of what I'm seeing around the World Juniors and stuff like that. So, hey, let's get excited, because next year I think is going to be a real. And I think we're one more year without Russia before things will get kind of dealt with there. So, hey, let me cover a couple quick little thing just around the things going on. There is a 6'6". He's a born player named, I'll say his name wrong. I believe it's Heoxi Wang, and his agent, John Walters. They met with the OHL Oshawa Generals about him joining the team. The USHL Lincoln Stars are also interested. He is committed for next year, not this coming year, next year, to the Boston University. So there was talk about 3 weeks ago. I haven't followed up on it. The guy's 6'6", though. He's a big boy. So that'll be interesting to see what comes of that. Now, I'm not going to get into it today, but there is also a class action lawsuit over in Washington State about ending the entry draft system in junior hockey. And so I'm going to share more about that later on, because that could be quite the big deal. And then, if you have not heard, Ivan Rybukin, Russian. He was a little bit higher thought to come out of this year, didn't start strong over in the KHL, the VHL, and the MHL. He played a little bit of everything. He has arrived in the United States Hockey League, guys. He's going to be drafted this coming year in the first round. He will be a top 15. I am positive of it. He's signed with Musqueam Lumberjacks. He's got 2 games, and he's already got 3 goals. So he's starting off on the right foot. That just shows you how hard playing over in Russia can be for some of these guys.
100%. And I also wanted to mention, I know I sent him to you, a 16-year-old by the name of Keaton Verhoff, who plays for the Victoria Royals, has been named WHL Rookie of the Week again, the 3rd time this season.
Amazing.
He's got 4 points in 4 games. Keep an eye on this kid, because the Victoria Royals, I've watched them play quite often, usually around Christmas time, because my family's in the area. So we usually go when they battle the Vancouver Giants. It's kind of a yearly tradition. I'm just saying that they haven't had a lot of prospects go from that team high in the draft. This kid potentially could go as pretty high.
Wow.
Maybe as high as in the first round, maybe in like between the 27th to 30th. I mean, he's got a few more years ahead. Keep an eye on this kid. He's going to be a stud.
So, hey, and the last thing I want to mention on the PWHL, I know there was something you wanted to bring up too around the PWHL and what's been happening. So one of the things I did want to mention, it's interesting for the Boston team in the PWHL. They're playing over, and I'm going to say it wrong for you Boston fans. It's the Tosongas Arena. It's supposed to take like an hour and a half to get over there. It can only fit about 2,800 plus, and you've been kind of booking games there. Come on, guys, get this straightened out. You got a good team there. You got good fans. Don't make them drive for a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour and a half of your games.
We're talking about Ottawa here. That arena is pretty far off. Yeah, so the PWHL, it's been going on a tour promoting its game. There's a lot of interest. It sounds like Calgary potentially could be one of the names that has a team sooner rather than later. They're coming to Edmonton here. I'm hoping to go on Sunday, February 16th. But Evan, from what I've heard, tickets are selling out at every event. It's been a hit. People are supporting the PWHL. They're getting behind it. And it looks like the league is growing in its second season. So props to them. The teams have names. They look pretty cool. We discussed them before. If you follow a team, let us know which team you'd like to follow. If there's a player you want to follow, let us know which player we should be keeping an eye on. Because, again, hockey is hockey, and we love it. And It looks like season 2 is going to be much better than season 1 with a lot of fireworks. Now –
let's move over to why don't we move over to the NHL news for a bit, and then around quarter 2, we'll get to the Revs.
All right, sounds good. So a little bit happening in the league since we've been off. Today it was announced that Florida teams, both Tampa Bay and the Panthers, will be getting outdoor games. The Florida Panthers will be playing the New York Rangers in an outdoor stadium. I think it's where it's
going to be their baseball park. They made it look like it. They made it look like it was the football stadium when the pitchers, but it's going to be the baseball.
Notice when we talk about Vernhoff, Evan wasn't interested because he's in the WHL. There you go. There you go, Evan. We're going to duke it out one day with you and Jordan. Which one? You're going to have to do that. Anyways, so they're hosting a game as well as the Tampa Bay, who are going to take on the Boston Bruins.
By the way, the sixth. Is this not the 6th outdoor game for Boston? What's up with this? It's just like they get to pick and choose.
Some teams are still waiting for their first. I understand. Now, I granted these teams are a little bit more competitive, so I get that. Yes, right? It is that.
You pay the team and they give up their door, right?
Now, I know I've already done a rant of the night, but can we just talk about how the viewership for the last one with St. Louis Winter Classic versus the Chicago Blackhawks was down for 2 reasons. One, it was on New Year's Eve, not on New Year's Day, which is normally done. And 2, it's because the NHL was worried about competing with college football. I got to be honest, Evan, that does not bode well if I'm an advertiser because you think your product is inferior to college football. Don't get me wrong, college football is great. But why do you feel that you can't promote your sport as being the best sport to watch on this day? And if it was on New Year's Day, great. The fact that you moved it to a day where there's 12 other teams playing, I believe it was, people are paying attention to other things. So the viewership dropped to under 1 million. I think it was in the 900,000.
Bad marketing.
And
the
bad
NHL,
marketing. And let's
the
be honest,
NHL.
the teams that are in it, Chicago is rebuilding. No one's going to get upset at that for me.
Nope.
And St. Louis is in the middle of the pack, right? They're kind of trending in the right direction, but they're not exactly in the top 4 in the Central. So, Evan, how do you pick a team like Chicago who has been there 6 times and has lost 6 times? I get it. It's tickets. It's promoting it. I think you could have had so many better teams. Imagine, Evan, let me just tell you, if you had Toronto versus Montreal, Toronto versus Edmonton,
That's heritage. That's heritage classics for Canada, though.
True, but you can have a Winter Classic for a Canadian team.
But they did heritage because of the Canadian heritage. That's what they specifically had.
I get it, but you can include other teams.
You've only got 7 teams in Canada, right?
No, but what I'm saying is that there's 32 teams in the league, 7 in Canada. Where's the other
Yeah.
ones that you can use? Why is it Chicago all the time? You couldn't have had,
Yeah.
for example,
Pittsburgh, Boston, right?
why don't you have, for example, Vegas Golden Knights, which are really going hard?
Because they went
versus-
last year.
No, that was versus Seattle. Yeah, but I mean, something
Well,
different. Columbus. Why not have Columbus? I don't know. Detroit, right?
Well, Detroit's been in quite a few too. You know who hasn't? Minnesota.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but again, part of the appeal is you got to give up to your and you trust the NHL. You got to give up your gate revenues. Some of them can't afford it, and then I don't know all the specifics, but the team and the lining up of all the times has to be able to work, right? Yeah. I know that.
Avs versus Stars, LA versus Vegas, Toronto, Montreal, or Ottawa, Vancouver or Calgary.
Yeah,
versus
Avs versus Stars, Avs versus Stars, or LA Vegas. I could like that.
I mean, Colorado had the Lake Tahoe game, right? It's just the ice wasn't
great.
the best. But yeah, and it was fantastic. But again, I really think the NHL, maybe you do it every second year. I don't know. Change it up. Wild versus Jets. Like there's so many potential storylines that you can have, and yet you choose to do it. You could have had Utah in its inaugural season. Can you imagine the wildness in Salt Lake City if you had Utah coming in, potentially versus Vegas? Oh, that would be a wild rivalry, right? This team that's trying to steal your fans.
Can't wait till the Arizona Coyotes come back and take on the Utah whatevers.
Apparently they're the Yeti, but we'll see next season. The one thing to report is that there is a committee starting up to potentially bring back the Arizona Coyotes again. We'll see what happens. This is early stages. I don't want to put too much stock into it, but
you need an arena. You need an arena. Like that committee better start working on an arena because it's going to, what's arena take now? 3 years? They're not going to be allowed to come in without an arena. So they're going to have to invest in that arena, get it started before they even get approved.
That's true. That's true.
But I know Bettman, and here's the question. How much longer will Bettman be before he's going to be gone? He may not even be a part of that decision. So
now, we talked a little bit about what's it called? Connor Bedard. I want to talk about Jeremy Roenick. He made some comments on a podcast about Connor Bedard and how Connor Bedard, being young, didn't really respect some of the alumni of the teams at the outdoor game. He didn't really shake their hands, including him and Chris Chelios, I believe it was. And he kind of made an offhanded comment about how, like, he doesn't respect the game as much. He thinks he's talented, but he needs to learn a little bit. Your thoughts on Jeremy Roenick's comments and just that whole...
Jeremy Roenick doesn't respect people. Forget about respecting the game. So he respects a game more than he respects people. And Jeremy Roenick wants what he wants. He is an egotistical person that, I don't have a problem like saying it. I love him. I love him. I love his skill and his talent and the way he played the game as a power forward. But he was always about himself. He was not about his teammates. Just because it's all third-hand information, I won't get into the stuff that I heard. I trust some of that, though, that he just was not that guy in the locker room. And, so you literally grab your perspective and mouth it out. So let me give you an analogy. One of the things, now I grew up loving wrestling, and I was a big Hogan fan till Warrior came out. And recently on Raw, they just got Hogan out, and I watched him, and it was a total joke. He's walking out with the shirt he couldn't rip off of his chest, around the bottom of his legs like he's wearing, like he's a rapper, and it was like embarrassing. His flabs hanging all over. I had thought he'd be good as an announcer, right? But here's the thing. Hogan has gone around wrapping his mouth off all over the place about Randy Savage. So Randy Savage gets on his social media and is like, "You and me, brother." And he wants him to, he's saying, listen, talk face to face. Jeremy's not talking face to face. Call him. Reach out to him. You think Bedard would not reach out and talk to you, a legend of that Chicago Blackhawks? Of course he would. You took an interpretation of it, Jeremy. Like, come on. He wants airtime because he's trying to make some extra bucks in his later days because he's mad he's not made. Right now, probably there's going to be more money made by Connor Bedard in his first 3 years on a rookie contract than Jeremy made probably his whole career.
Just a few other things to get to before we get to a big, juicy topic in the NHL. Conazari injured. They're waiting for the swelling to go down after that knee-to-knee versus the Anaheim Ducks. Drew Hellison.
Oh, that's tough.
Didn't look good. I'm hoping that he's back. He's been a good fit for Calgary, and he's been one of their younger, brighter spots. And the team's doing well. They're in the playoffs. Yeah. They're doing well.
But here's an interesting thing about the Flames. They are 29th in goals for, right? They're like 29th or 30th in their power play, like in the rankings for the percentages. The team is struggling, but yet somehow they're right there in that playoff place. I mean, that's pretty amazing. But Connor Zary they've scored 100 goals, and 10% of them will come from Connor, even though he's only scored 10 with it. So that brings me to a question. I just want to take a few minutes before you move to the next one, team. The talk is out there because Rangers are blowing things up. They signed for 8 years at 7.45. We brought it up 3 weeks ago on our podcast. You were the one that mentioned it, Pawel. Alexei Lafreniere. So he's at 7.45. Right now, it's a poop show. He started the season looking like he was improving. Now it's been dropping. The culture is bad. Right now, would you take a chance if you were Calgary? Move a Connor Zary and maybe a Coronado in a first round to be able to bring in he is overpaid, but there is a lot of potential that you could get there to actually have a player of his caliber this early and then still move forward. I don't know. I mean, because you're going to lose a good first round draft pick, right?
I would. You take a chance with Calgary. You bolster. You give the fans and the team something to believe in, and to show the guys that we're in this. Let's get a little bit more. And we know that goal scoring is at a premium in the NHL. Okay. Just look at Nashville. I mean, they overpaid for wanting goals from Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. And so, you really want that. You saw what Anaheim just did with Frank Vetrano. We can get into his contract a little bit, but he's scoring for that team this year, and he's put up some points, and they believe that goals are important. So Calgary, I would do that if I was Calgary, but Craig Conroy, but I'm not in a shoot. I don't have to make a decision.
Calgary fans, let us know what you think if you're listening. You reject it? Do you accept it? Give us a better deal that you think you would work, or maybe another team that you'd want to kind of move some players out, or do you just stay with the status quo and know that the next 2 years, because I'm a little concerned you're not even going to get in the top 5 if you keep playing the way you are and you're winning some games. To me, Dustin Wolf is the only untouchable right now.
Yeah, Vladar could potentially fetch something because you have some backup options there, but and I think it was silly of Boston to let him go. But you could potentially dangle him for something because teams need goalies, right? You got to think about that. Yeah. Now, speaking of the Rangers, I know we quickly touched on them. They did pick up Arthur Kaliyev from LA as a winger. He has been injured this year. He hasn't really played, but I think that's a good pickup for the Rangers, especially since they lost Capo Caco in that trade. And they're looking to replace that. I think the Rangers are in a very interesting position, and we're going to get into why, because it seems like there's been rumblings about them offering a 1-for-1 of Mika Zibanejad, who does have a no-movement clause, to Vancouver for JT Miller. Now, we'll get into Vancouver in a bit, but it seems like I don't know what Chris Drury's doing, and I'm going to be honest, Evan, if the team has given up on playing for him or just don't want to play anymore in that way, and it looks like it's going to be very hard for them to make the playoffs, I think that there needs to be upper management discussions about what's going to happen with Chris Drury moving forwards. But your thoughts for the Rangers?
So this is my suggestion, the number one suggestion I have for the New York Rangers. As many of you know, and if you have not familiar, I won't go through the list, and if you're listening, Alex Thomas, who is the play-by-play for the Hartford Wolfpack, he was one of the first guys, came on our show and got a promotion. We can name them one after another. Like, we have over 7 to 10 guests that have got promotions. Howie Draper, right? We go into the end of the last season. We had some guests coming in, and they just keep moving up. So Chris Drury denied us the ability to be able to interview Alex Thomas, who is a part of the Rangers organization. I say, Chris Drury, open up, allow us to come in, interview you, give us your take. Allow us to work this. And, buddy, I'm telling you, promotions are on the way. And I don't mean a promotion to another team. I mean a promotion up. I think your team will do well. Got to try it, bud. Got to try it. That's the number one thing.
I think the Rangers just need to reset whatever they need to do. They need their own U2 concert like the Nashville Predators have last year. And I
do
think
you
they
do?
need to just kind of figure things out. It may not be this
How?
year. That's
How?
okay.
How do you
But-
figure stuff out right now? Like
By taking
how?
a pause. Sometimes a
Okay.
fresh slate.
Okay,
If you're not
what's a pause? What's that look like though? Like walk me through this. Flesh this out for me. What does a pause look like for them right now?
Well, the Four Nations Cup is coming up, so maybe
Okay.
potentially a pause to just like reset, get a
Okay,
breather.
okay.
If you want an immediate reaction.
Okay,
What?
but yeah, and I agree with you, but they're going to get that no matter what anyway, right? So what can they do purposely that they're not already we're going to do naturally? I guess
Well,
that's my question. Because if you
They
keep
need to
doing
have
what
a
you've always done,
heart-to-heart. They need to have a heart-to-heart with Chris Drury as a team or a representative, whatever the leadership team is for the Rangers.
yeah,
With Peter Laviolette in the room and say, this is what we're expecting. We did not like the way you treated Jacob Trouba. We did not like the way you treated Barclay Goudreau, who's now in San Jose. We expect different. How are we going to repair this relationship? Because we're going to get into Vancouver in just a bit. But there are many teams that I've heard about in the last little bit that don't get along. Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, I'm looking at you. And yet there are teams that do it in the past and have won. I think the BC Lions did it in 2000. They won. And my understanding is that the coach talked about how there were a lot of guys on that team that did not like each other. And that happens in sports.
Yeah.
You don't have to be best
Absolutely.
friends. You have to be respectful, amicable, and compete and play for one another.
but
right?
you got and that I think that's a key point, right? You got to play for one
And
another.
that's where you've got to figure things out because otherwise things are not going to go well.
So
That's what I
this
think
is
the Rangers need to do. They've
I-
won a few, but what do you?
board, the board
Where's
isn't
that
you.
pride? You are
So-
an NHL player. Sorry, go ahead.
No. The only thing I think that you can do is let Drury go. It's time to move on because allowing him to try to rebuild something that he's been rebuilding for how many years? He has been there a long, long time. He's gone through a lot of tenure of coaches. That board, the board of directors, I'm shocked that they've kept it because they have to make a move. And even if it's not Drury's fault, if you're putting it on the players or putting it on the coach, well, he's the one that selected the coach. He's the one that traded for the players. What I don't see is I don't see what you would call – now, I'm not saying the players don't have character. Don't misquote me. What I'm saying is there are teams that have people that are like a David Pastrnak, right? The Pasty over in Boston or even a Brad Marchand. Or you got your Dreisaitl's or your McDavids or your Ryan Smiths. You got your Nathan McKinnons or Cale Makars. Like they go into that dressing room and they say it. They're right in their face with the other players. But they're also very respectful when they do it. And my thing is, I don't know who's that. I think that was what Trouba did. That was the one thing he added and he appreciated about the being allowed that captaincy. But right now, you can't play players like Panarin. I'm sorry. I saw this coming. And Zibanejad, they're like, he's a number one center. No, he's not. He's been a number two at the best of his years and generally been a number three. And so that's why this is a joke, by the way. This whole thing. Yeah, did they make a call? Maybe they made a call. But I am telling you, if the Canucks got a call, they hung up quick. They hung up quick. There's no way. That just might as well say you're trading you're going to trade Draisaitl straight across for Zibanejad. Pettersson is a 100 and some point player. He's maybe not quite that level, but he's also younger, and he has a lot to go. So,
well, speaking of the Vancouver Canucks, let's touch on the fact that there has been a lot of turmoil in that team for quite a few years. There's been a lot of information shared. It was funny over the weekend when Saturday headlines happened and Elliot Friedman gave the three possibilities, which just seems like the typical possibilities. They all stay, one gets traded, or the other gets traded, right? Like that's true. That's potentially what's going to happen. But really, it sounds like JT Miller, who's a very passionate, fiery, strong guy, according to some players who have gone on other podcasts and talked about it, and just from the locker room, they've really what's it called? He's a little harder on Pettersson, and Pettersson has put a lot of pressure on himself. He's not performing to the standard. We know last playoffs he was injured. He came back stronger. He's had a 100-point season. They're both signed to long-term deals. They both make the Canucks better. But Evan, how do you approach this situation? Do you trade one of these guys? Is that what it's going to rely on? Now, let's talk about the fact that Vancouver Canucks right now, they're very injured. You know, Lankinen is still playing very well, and you got to re-sign that guy because you picked him up for cheap. I think it was $1 million for 1 year. You got to sign him. You need that goalie. You brought in Rick Tocchet and last year, and he made a difference. He was, awarded Jack Adams, I believe it was, or he was one of the head coaches he won last year because he's known as the player whisperer, specifically JT Miller whisperer. He was able to do the same thing with Phil Kessel with the drama that was between him and Malkin and Crosby in Pittsburgh. He has a way, but
can I just say this about Rick Tocchet? He was in Arizona. Nobody wanted him. He was cast off. He was put in other places. And everybody did. Everybody was just basically honking his horn. It's just like, oh, he's so great. And he's doing this. And look at the team change. Okay, if you believe that he was the reason for the change in the coaching structure, all that, so now you blame the players when things go wrong, but you don't blame the coach, then why can't the coach turn around? I see a bunch of people all after Woodcroft, after 13 games the other year. 13 games, he struggled a little bit with his team, who was a winning team. They bring Knobloch in, and they're like, Knobloch's the savior. Hang on. Just the year before, Woodcroft was the savior. Now you're saying Woodcroft isn't a good coach? Well, that's just the same thing. Is the coach good? Is he not? Too much credit goes to coaches, and too much credit goes against coaches. The problem is the coach has to find a way to deal with the internal rumblings. And what I don't like, though, is what Tocchet did. I can find you clippings from when he took over for Boudreau. Little bits and pieces. He kept biting away at what kind of team he structured, what he built, and all these little things. He learned a lot in Pittsburgh, but you know what? He's there because there's a president that really likes him named Rutherford.
Yeah. I just think that there's going to have to be some tipping point for the Vancouver Canucks, and I think there will be a trade.
Miller.
What that looks like, we'll see. Yeah,
move Miller out. He's the older guy. You want to keep building your team,
but he's a passionate, fiery guy, and he performs better in the playoffs. You need you need both of these guys to win. You need both types of players to win. It'll be interesting to see. So we're going to keep an eye on the Vancouver thing. I think it's been talked about ad nauseum, but we just wanted to get our thoughts. Now, two quick things before we move on to whatever everyone wanted to talk about with this Rev Top 15. We wish the people in LA all the best. The game tonight versus Calgary was canceled due to the wildfires. 2 people have perished. It's been horrific. We send out all the best to the people there, especially all the hockey fans. We hope everyone's okay and can get the necessary help and resources if they need it. You never want to see that. And that game, of course, will be rescheduled for cryptocom.arena. That's definitely did. As well as Boston did also re-sign Mark Kasterlik, who came over in that trade in the offseason for Linus Ullmark. And they signed him to a 3-year, $4.7 million extension, 1.567. He's been playing pretty well. He's 25. He's got 4 goals and 7 assists in 39 games. But I got to tell you, Evan, I don't know what's happening with Boston, and the real G Rand can maybe potentially share with us, or even Kyle, because that team really fell apart yesterday. It did not look good. I didn't like the hit by Zadorov on Skinner. I don't really care about the response. I think the team showed it in other ways. I think it was just a bad play by Zadorov, but thank goodness Skinner was able to come back and return to the game. And what I learned is that he didn't actually get a shutout because he did not play the full 60 minutes. Because Calvin Pickard came in.
3rd time.
Yeah, so that is why he did not get credited with the shutout. So just a little tidbit information. Jake, fan and guest of the show, filled me in on that one because I was a little confused. I was like, what? How did he not?
Yeah, you have to play the entire 60 minutes. And or the other person can't have faced a single shot on net.
Yeah.
So
but yeah, there's that, and we wish them all the best. I know that there's still a little bit there. And finally, before we get into the Revs top 15, I just want to shout out Montreal Canadiens. They have been on a heater, Evan. They have been rocking. They are in a potential playoff spot. They have beaten all the best teams except for Chicago. Like this team, I think, is 7-2 in its last 9 games. Montreal, it came out of nowhere. I know Laine is injured again. He's found his scoring touch on the power play. The team is going. The one player that still needs to get going is Juraj Slafkovsky. I know he struggled a little bit, But let's talk about how well that team has gelled, especially since I remember, Evan, just 3 months ago, and you just talked about this. You live by the sword, die by the sword. People were calling for Martin St. Louis' head. They were like, you got to fire this guy. He is a terrible coach. What are you doing? Just like that, it can change.
I know, right?
People, fans, be patient. Things happen. Now, they have struggled at home a little bit more than away. So as the old Gord Stellick line goes, if you're going to stink on the road, right? But I like what Montreal's doing. And when Canadian teams do well, I'm happy because it boosts the rivalries in Canada and people get really talking and really riled up about who's the best Canadian team.
Absolutely right. And I like the idea. Laine's got in his 13 games. Think of it. He's got 8 goals in only 13 games. And he actually made a comment about Hudson. So one of the things that he said is he thinks he's the best power play quarterback he's ever played with. And he's played with a lot of good players out there. So that's really high praise this year.
Good pressure.
I mean, that's amazing. And then the other thing that I am finding amazing this year is I am excited about next season. And just like a lot of your Canadian fans are, as Flyer fans were when they heard Mishkov was coming over, it's Demidov. Demidov is playing like crazy lights out. And let me explain to you. 41 games, he's got 31 points with Ska in the St. Petersburg in the KHL. But understand, for like about 25 of those games, he's had 12 and less minutes a game. He's not on the top power play. He's not getting those. And he has just been really starting to light it up even more recently. They're slowly giving him more. I think they're recognizing maybe we can win. They struggle with players that they know are coming over to North America to play NHL to actually keep them playing, but they don't really have much else that is providing the wins. And Demidov is, but every once in a while they just seem to not be good with young development. So Demidov coming next year, I am like super excited. I like to see him have a good playoff run in the KHL. If they can get into the playoff and be able to make a good run, that would be excellent for them. And think about also for them. I mean, they've had so many injuries. Like I know Vancouver's dealing with it, but having the injuries the last 3 years, they've gotten good draft picks.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they've got a few more wins, so now they're kind of coming out. But if they could get a top 15 one more year, even, that's really going to set them up really well. And if they can hit on, like, say, 2 or 3 in the last 5 years that are drafted in, like, say, the third rounds and lower, that would be fabulous, huh?
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, I know that there was some, we were off the air that Laine made some comments about Columbus and just how he felt treated about that organization and a little bit of banter between him and Zach Werenski. You got to understand, this guy went through a lot of mental health issues. Columbus came out and, pummeled them and really played them hard. But you love seeing these rivalries. We can't blame hockey players when they come out and have personality and make, good sound bites. And then we criticize them. Oh, how can you say that? How can you know what I mean? You love it. You love to see new rivalries emerge. Is it going to be Columbus versus Montreal in a few years? We shall wait and see, but you love to see it. Now, we're going to get into the Rev Top 15 because I know there's still quite a bit left to talk about, but I know you wanted really, really to talk about your Revs Top 15. Plus, I have a few things to cover before we finish off the show.
Yeah, I got some too. That's good.
Revs Top 15.
Brought to you by the electronic hard rock band Penny Billionaires. Look for them wherever you find your music.
Hey guys, great to have you back again for Revs Top 15 for 2025. If you notice this year, if you've been following, maybe you're not familiar, Revs Top 15 every year I produce. By the end of the year, I'll give you my top 15 in the beginning of June. That top 15 is based on where I see them finishing their career. So it's really hard to evaluate till you're at least 8 to 10 years later. I still feel good that I had Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, number 1, back in the day. A lot of people were like, no, Gabriel Landeskog. And remember, you got her injuries, they tally up, right? Lemieux, if he'd never been injured, would he have been just as good or greater than Gretzky? I believe he could have very possibly had been. So, but yeah, let's get into it here. Number 6, because I told you come in the new year, I was going to give it up to you. Number 6 is Victor Eklund. So Victor Eklund, I have ranked right now number 6. There are some people that have him anywhere between a 5, most of them between 8 and 9. Some even in the 10s from the Gardens of the hockey Elvin Spenken. I'm probably saying it wrong, and that's okay. But in 24 games, he's got 15 points. I really liked and I give him a bump up, and I'm interested coming out. He had a great first game back. The U20 in his 7 games, he had 6 points. He wasn't considered the top go-to guy, but he was really good at picking up. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to produce moving forward. So having said that, let me go back. Now, James Higgins, I'm concerned about what he was doing before going into the tournament. He should have been at least top 2 on that team, though, in my opinion, still, if he truly is going to be a number 1 franchise player coming in. And I know you're saying it's a 19, 20-year-old tournament, but I'm sorry, at his age already, at 18 years old now, at 5'10", and he is supposed to be this incredible skilled guy. In 16 games at BU, he's got 20 points with only 5 goals. Now, in the U20, he did have 9 points in his 7 games. Really good, 5 goals. But look who he's playing with. We just talked about them. He's playing with Cole Hudson. He's playing with Ryan Leonard. He's playing with, I forget all the names, Gabriel Perreault. I mean, he had like incredible line mates. So here's the thing. He didn't do anything to go down, and he did a good job to hold steady. My thing is Michael Misa. I said coming out of the tournament, I might change my mind. But Michael Misa was not even selected by Hockey Canada, so I can't move him up. And unfortunately, he had a couple bummer games for the first time this year in 34 games. So he had a couple. In the last couple, he's picked up again. But in 34 games, he's got 32 goals and 34 assists for 66 points. He is almost 2 points a game. So, hey, the third, and I know a lot of people are going on about Matthew Schaefer, who got injured. By the way, is this another reason that tournaments mid-season are terrible? Matthew Schaefer is my number 3 now. I've put Porter Mortone to 4. Matthew Schaefer, I can't put him number 1. I can't put him number 2 over those guys. But I wanted people to recognize this guy is only 3 months older than Gavin McKenna. They don't recognize. He's super young. So he actually is going to easily have a couple seasons left to begin to continue, and I think as a defenseman. But unfortunately, I'm worried about the injury. Coming out of something like this, an injury can lay back. So should he get back for the rest of the season? Should Michael back off or James drop a bit? Maybe I'll move him up, but I have him safely at 3. And Porter, I kept him at 4. Roger, I've left him there. I'm really worried how long this injury. He should be back early February. And of course, 6. So let me just tell you the mock draft. This is what it looks like. By the way, Gavin McKenna's back at it. 30 games, 19 points, and 41 assists for 60. 2 points a game for the 17-year-old just turned in the CHL, in the Western Hockey League. Good old Western Hockey League. Jordan Roberts' stomping grounds where he likes to scout. So Blackhawks right now.
Lose Evan for a second.
Oh, am I gone, or are you like going off? Where are we going here? Am I off? Am I back? What's going on? Let me know.
No, I was off for a sec. I apologize.
Okay.
You're back. I was off, I think.
Well, I kept talking, but all I was saying, am I back? Are you there? What's that? So I want to give you the quick mock, and then we're going to jump off of this news and go back to a bit of NHL stuff to wrap today, guys. If today we pick based on the team standings, the Blackhawks would pick James Higgins. The San Jose Sharks would take Matthew Misa. The Nashville Predators would have Matthew Schaefer. Buffalo would get Porter Mortone. That might be what they need. Seattle would grab Roger McQueen, and the Islanders would take Victor Eklund, according to where I have everyone standing at this time. Guys, that is it for me. That is my Revs Top 15.
We love it.
Revs Top 15.
Brought to you by the electronic hard rock band Penny Billionaires. Look for them wherever you find your music.
If you guys think Jeff Merrick is what's it called, junior hockey geek, he has not met Evan REV Renaerts. You guys go to him, and he gets you your Rev Top 15 every week. You go check it out because he's got the inside. low tide, whatever you want, any kind of tide. He's got the inside. Beautiful, Evan. I love it. We're going to finish off with one last thing, but you guys can let us know, who do you think is a good potential prospect, where they will go? Should Buffalo draft high? What is Chicago going to do? There's a lot of questions coming up in the draft, but I like numbers, Evan. Do you like numbers? Let's get into some numbers.
Puckpedia, the ultimate source for your NHL salary cap information, player contracts, team cap hits, transaction news, and injury news.
The numbers.
We go all the time into numbers. We love numbers. We appreciate Puckpedia for their sponsorship, and you can get a lot of information. Now, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole for this one thing, but before we get to it, Evan, we are now with Mr. Alexander Ovechkin at 872 goals. That's a lot of goals. He is 22 away from beating that record of Wayne Gretzky. People talked about, oh, he's slowing down. He's 39 years old. He was injured. What's he going to do? A lot of them are empty netters. Evan, I think he does it. That's my bold prediction, that he does it by the end of the season. And the Washington Capitals, who I predicted terribly were going to drop out of a playoff spot, are going to go far in the playoffs because they are rolling, and that team is going. Do you think that Alexander Ovechkin breaks the record, those numbers that we've seen?
I think he drops short 1 or 2 goals just for the drama. I actually think that things are going to start changing for Washington as we get tighter and tighter. I think there's going to be some changes at the trade deadline. So this is going to depend on management. They're going to still have to continue to build that team and support a little bit on the top end. I still think they're an elite top 6 still away that they need to kind of put in place. I think they can get away with their D and their goaltending for this period of time. So yeah, no, I kind of feel like that would be obviously you're a strong believer of it. Do you think he's going to cross over that pendulum?
Yeah. I think he gets. How many goals? I think he'll get to 894 this season. I think it's going to be a while.
Just at least tie it.
Yeah, I think he'll at least tie it this year. 22 goals is nothing for Alexander Ovechkin. My question is, who's the goalie that's not gonna want to get scored on to be part of hockey trivia? Right? Go ahead.
Tristan Jarry.
Ooh, bold. That would be wild. All I'm going to say is, look at the Washington Capitals schedule for March, April,
and check the last 4 games.
Yeah, because that potentially could happen. Now, I will say that
Shesterkin. I hope he gets it on a guy like Shesterkin, who would be a hard sell goalie, because then it doesn't hurt the goalie's reputation. Because Shesterkin is going to be a Hall of Fame goalie, you know that. So.
Very true. And as for Washington, we know that they have to re-sign both their goalies who are UFA, Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, numbers. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, you got some more now. Just make sure you get me in there at some point because I got a number.
The final thing I want to get you talking. I love numbers. We talked about it as much.
Okay.
The Buffalo Sabres. They are getting to the 13th season of being without in a playoff spot. They've made all the moves they can. They've gotten a first-round draft pick. They've gotten rid of that first-round draft pick who went on to win. You see a lot of these players. Evan, what do the Buffalo Sabres need to do, like the Rangers you talked about? Give me straight, hard facts, step by step. What does Buffalo do in order for them to succeed? Because it looks like they are struggling once again. They just brought in a new coach. They relied on their young guys. They're taking calls on their some of their young forwards like Dylan Cousins. Tage Thompson didn't make the Four Nations, which is coming up here in just a few weeks. What is to make sense of Buffalo? What is going on?
I definitely think this is the mix of chemistry. This is not just about like a confidence level or like that happens to young folks. They remind me a lot of the Edmonton Oilers back during the decade of darkness when they have a bunch of star players, except they have even more and they couldn't get through it. And I believe this all begins with the general manager and a new coach, and quit going from the heat pile. Go to someone who's got the experience taking an established team with them. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to the well far too often, and I'm representing the good old boy. But I think you want a coach, you bring in Woodcroft. We saw what he can do by taking a bunch of young players. I think they need to get a couple vets to play around those guys. You can't keep trading away those good vets. I think moving Dylan Cousins, if they can make that deal before the trade deadline.
I don't do it.
I do because you got to unload that contract to be able to move something else over. It's too much, and he got paid too quick, too fast. They're trying to save money in the future. I do not move Bowen Byron. I keep that defense. I do not change off of that. I keep working with it and the goaltending. I believe it's a forward, and they need better depth on the bottom lines and a little mix. But you need a good coach, but you need a general manager. And I don't even know who's out there right now. I haven't thought through it tonight. If you guys know who's a general manager you would trust, because everybody they bring in is just not the right guy, like Botterill or like why did Kevin get the job? It's like, come on. You know who I would bring in? Actually, let's bring in another Kevin. I would bring in Kevin Weeks has been vying for a GM job for a while. I would consider Kevin Weeks. And one other guy that's now looking to get back in, and I love his assessment of players. I know you won't like him from his past, but he is an excellent, I believe, understanding of the game, and that's Brian Lawton. So I would take either Kevin Weeks or Brian Lawton, and both of those guys were vying for a couple general managers positions they've applied for if the situation's right, and then both of those guys would do good in that role. Look at Mike Greer. I did not think he was going to do as well, and you know what? In spite of not liking a lot of his moves, they're starting to look to pay off now, as the team is now starting to move into a new rebuild that's actually legitimate.
I agree with you. But I don't know if you can make that mention. I don't think Kevin Adams has made bad choices. I think the problem is that they've gotten rid of too many veteran pieces, especially
that's a bad choice, though. Those are bad choices.
That's true. Right. I'm going to look at, you know what? We talked about it at the beginning of the hour, and you guys can go back and watch it. World Juniors. David Carl, who's just coached U.S. to 2 back-to-back World Junior Championships. And he's won at different levels as well. Do you throw a bunch of money at him? Do the Pagulas go, hey, we need this guy? He knows how to talk to young players. We've got a lot of young players. And I like Jay Woodcroft, but you look at him and his resume, and you give a newer coach a chance if you're looking for that way, if you're going to go that route. Because I believe that is the way to do it. I hope Buffalo succeeds because, again, the league is a better place when Buffalo is successful. I just feel for their fans because 13 years going on without a playoff performance, even by sheer fluke, one of those years, like I think it was last year or 2 years ago the bubble, where they were able to make it, but because Montreal had a better point percentage in terms of when the season halted, they weren't invited. It was, Montreal and Chicago. So things like that happen.
Here's a coach. If you're not taking Woodcroft, what about taking Gallant? Bringing him in.
No, I want something different and completely different. You've gone off the board. You've done the same old.
But you're going to bring someone that had no NHL experience?
Yep. He just won at the young level, and you have a lot of
we know how that works with Dave Hackstall. Woo-wee. Hello.
Well, we'll see how it goes. You wanted to get into one last thing, and we're running to 2 guys in overtime, as you guys know us as. What did you want to get into?
Okay, I didn't mention this a while back, but I found this interesting. When McDavid, and this is about, a month and a half ago when McDavid hit 1,000 points, I want you guys to recognize what you're looking at for hockey history. And this isn't hockey history, but understanding the current active players. He reached 1,000 points in 98 less games than Sidney Crosby, who will be a top 5, top 6 player of all time. 98 less games. That's like a season and a quarter. He's done it in 189 less games than Evgeny Malkin. And listen to this. You just talked about a legend in the making. Alexander Ovechkin. He reached 1,000 points in 211 less games than Alexander Ovechkin. Folks, you are looking, to me, at a top 3 overall player by the time he retires in hockey history. I'm telling you, mark it. It will happen. You can hate him all you want, but the guy is a human video.
Can he get to 2,000 points in his career?
I think he can.
Wow. You guys can let us know below. I mean, if he gets a cup, automatic into the Hall of Fame first ballot. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
That is how good he just needs that cup. He was so close, but he needs it. And I think the Oilers are going to do whatever it takes to keep him. and to get him that Stanley Cup ring. But that's it, Evan. Is there anything else you wanted to follow up on, or are we done for another ring-a-ding-dandy?
Yeah, no, the only thing I just wanted to quickly mention is Columbus, it looks like Caden Lindstrom will not play the rest of this year. We kind of knew that, and looks like he'll start next year in Medicine Hat, take the training camp, try to recoup and rehab, and then play in Medicine Hat to try to get some rehabbing time for a final year of overage junior. So I'm hoping all the best, because some people are worried he may never be able to return. But
hey, can I just say, for all the Columbus fans out there, good on you for being in a wild card spot, the second wild card spot right now. You guys are rocking it. Now, I know they've been taking calls on Ivan Provorov. That's somebody that's of interest to a couple of teams around the league. But that's definitely someone to keep an eye on. The other one, again, so much news is happening always. We miss out on it. Jonathan Toews potentially can make a return. May not be this season, maybe next season. But keep an eye out for him, because he potentially could sign a quick 1-year deal, show me deal with one of the teams. So it'll be interesting. Guys, we are here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We love hearing from you guys. We talk all things hockey. There's a lot happening right now, right? But remember to follow us on Twitter/X, where you can find Evan at REV, me at hockey_2. You can go to our YouTube page, our Facebook page. We are posting daily, weekly. We got articles happening on our page. We got our former guests that have attended on our show. We love hearing from you guys. You guys make this show the best. You make us come back here every week when our wives tell us that we shouldn't. And we make sure that we bring you the latest, the greatest, and the funnest content ever. And we will banter, we will rant, we will give you history, we will do it all for another year of Two Guys in Hockey Talk. And as always, Evan, in the meantime
and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe, guys. See you next week.